The Middle East, a land of scorching deserts, ancient history, and simmering conflicts. At the heart of this volatile region lies a rivalry as old as time itself, the bitter feud between Saudi Arabia and Iran. It's a clash of ideologies, a struggle for regional dominance, and a competition for the soul of Islam. Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam and custodian of its holiest sites, embraced Sunni Islam. Iran, on the other hand, became the bastion of Shia Islam. This fundamental religious difference has fueled centuries of mistrust, animosity, and conflict between the two nations. Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, rose to prominence as a staunch ally of the West, particularly the United States. Iran, on the other hand, charted a different course. The 1979 Islamic Revolution overthrew the pro-Western Shah and established a theocratic republic under Ayatollah Khomeini. Saudi Arabia views Iran's revolutionary zeal and its support for Shia groups as a direct threat. Iran sees Saudi Arabia as a puppet of the West, accusing it of suppressing Muslims and betraying the Palestinian cause. And the rivalry has played out in numerous proxy conflicts across the Middle East, from Lebanon to Yemen. The stakes in a potential Saudi-Iran war are astronomically high. The Middle East, already a tinderbox of tensions, could be engulfed in a conflagration that could draw in global powers. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway through which a third of the world's oil supply passes, could become a flashpoint. Iran has repeatedly threatened to close the strait in response to sanctions or military action. The war could also unleash a humanitarian catastrophe, exacerbating the suffering of millions of civilians. Moreover, the conflict could escalate into a broader regional war, dragging in countries like Israel, Turkey, and the United States. On paper, the military balance between Saudi Arabia and Iran appears lopsided. Saudi Arabia boasts one of the world's largest defense budgets, dwarfing Iran's military spending. Iran, constrained by decades of sanctions, has focused on developing asymmetric capabilities. This includes investing heavily in ballistic missiles. This includes investing heavily in naval mines. This includes investing heavily in cyber warfare. Saudi Arabia's military has often been criticized for its lack of combat experience. Iran, on the other hand, boasts a battle-hardened military, having fought a grueling 8-year war with Iraq. Iran has honed its skills through years of proxy conflicts. Section 2, the Saudi Arsenal. The cornerstone of Saudi Arabia's military might is its air force, widely regarded as one of the most advanced in the Middle East. Equipped with American-made F-15 Eagles and Eurofighter Typhoons, the Royal Saudi Air Force possesses a significant edge. Saudi Arabia also maintains a substantial ballistic missile arsenal, primarily consisting of Chinese-made DF-3A missiles. The Saudi ground forces, while numerically superior, are largely equipped with aging American and European tanks. Saudi Arabia's navy, focused on defending the kingdom's coastline, is equipped with a mix of American and European warships. Section 3, the Iranian Lion. Iran has invested heavily in developing asymmetric capabilities to offset its technological disadvantages. This includes amassing a vast arsenal of ballistic and cruise missiles capable of striking targets across the Persian Gulf. Iran's ballistic missile program includes the Shahab-3, capable of reaching targets deep inside Saudi Arabia. Iran possesses a formidable naval force designed for asymmetric warfare in the Persian Gulf. Iran relies heavily on its network of proxy militias such as Hezbollah and the Houthis to project power and influence across the region. Section 4, cyber warfare. In the 21st century, the battleground extends far beyond the physical realm. Both Saudi Arabia and Iran have invested heavily in developing their cyber capabilities. Cyber attacks could disrupt critical infrastructure, including oil facilities, power grids, and financial institutions. Iran is believed to possess sophisticated cyber capabilities, honed through years of clandestine operations. Saudi Arabia has made significant strides in bolstering its cyber defenses, partnering with Western cybersecurity firms. Section 5. The fog of war. While analyzing military capabilities provides valuable insights, war is inherently unpredictable. Military might alone does not guarantee victory. Factors such as leadership, morale, training, logistics, and intelligence can play a decisive role. A regional conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran could quickly spiral out of control, drawing in regional and global powers. As we delve deeper into our hypothetical hour-by-hour breakdown of a Saudi-Iran war, it is essential to keep these uncertainties in mind. Section 1. Shifting sands of allegiance. The Middle East is often described as a giant chessboard where global powers maneuver for influence. At the heart of this geopolitical landscape lies the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Traditional alliances have been tested as the United States finds itself increasingly at odds with Tehran. The rise of new players such as China and Russia further complicates the picture. Understanding the complex web of alliances that underpins the regional order is crucial. Section 2. The House of Saud's Allies. Saudi Arabia has long relied on a network of powerful allies to bolster its security. At the forefront stands the United States, a partnership built on shared strategic interests. The United States provides Saudi Arabia with military aid, intelligence sharing, and a security umbrella. Beyond the United States, Saudi Arabia enjoys close ties with other Gulf Arab states. Saudi Arabia has also sought to cultivate relationships with other regional and global players, including India and Israel. Section 3. The Persian Lion's Pride. Iran faces a different set of challenges and opportunities in the realm of alliances. Russia has emerged as a key partner for Iran, providing military hardware and diplomatic cover. Iran has cultivated close ties with various Shia militias and political groups across the region. These groups act as its proxies, extending Tehran's influence and posing a constant challenge to Saudi Arabia. Iran has also sought to cultivate relationships with non-state actors, providing additional leverage in its regional power struggle. Section 4. A tangled web. The web of alliances in the Middle East is complex, fluid, and often driven by self-interest. A regional conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran could draw in their respective allies. The potential for external intervention by global powers like the United States, China, and Russia further complicates the picture. These actors could be drawn into the conflict, escalating the violence and expanding the scope of the war. As we transition to Act 3, it's crucial to remember that alliances are subject to change, shaping the trajectory of the conflict and its ultimate outcome. Section 1. 0 hour. A false calm. A palpable tension hangs in the air, a suffocating blanket of apprehension smothering the region. In Riyadh, King Salman chairs an emergency meeting of his top military brass. Reports flood in of Iranian troop movements and ballistic missiles being fueled. In Tehran, Ayatollah Khamenei addresses his nation with a message of defiance. The world watches with bated breath, hoping for a last-minute miracle. Section 2. Hour 1. Shock and awe. The first rays of dawn are shattered by the ear-splitting roar of fighter jets. Saudi F-15s, armed with precision-guided munitions, scream towards predetermined targets deep inside Iranian territory. The element of surprise is crucial. The objective is to cripple Iran's ability to retaliate. Explosions light up the pre-dawn sky over Tehran. Key military installations and air defense systems are engulfed in flames. Panic grips Tehran as sirens wail and smoke rises. News of the attack sends shockwaves across the globe. Section 3. Hour 12, retaliation and escalation. The element of surprise, so crucial in the initial hours of the conflict, begins to dissipate. Iran, though bloodied and bruised, is far from defeated. As the dust settles over Tehran, a defiant Ayatollah Khamenei appears on state television, his message one of anger, vengeance and unwavering resolve. The Saudi attack, he proclaims, will be met with swift and decisive retaliation. True to his word, a wave of Iranian ballistic missiles, some capable of carrying one-ton warheads, streaks across the Persian Gulf towards Saudi Arabia. Refineries in Abqaiq and Qurais, the heart of the Saudi oil infrastructure, erupt in flames, the night sky illuminated by the infernos. The Saudi leadership, though anticipating a response, is taken aback by the ferocity and precision of the Iranian counterstrike. The attack on its oil facilities, a strategic masterstroke, strikes at the very foundation of the Saudi economy. The carefully crafted image of Saudi Arabia as an impregnable fortress, a regional hegemon, is shattered. The world watches in horror as the conflict escalates with terrifying speed. The initial hope for a quick and decisive war evaporates, replaced by the grim realization that this conflict, once ignited, could easily spiral out of control, dragging the entire region and perhaps the world into a maelstrom of unimaginable destruction. The Strait of Hormuz in flames. The Strait of Hormuz, the jugular vein of global oil trade, is engulfed in flames. Iranian boats with missiles turn the waterway into a deadly battlefield. The air is thick with smoke and burning oil. Iran deploys naval mines to cripple the Saudi blockade. A Saudi frigate is destroyed by a mine, sending shockwaves through the region. The closure of the strait sends shockwaves through the global economy. Oil prices skyrocket, leading to fuel shortages and economic turmoil. Section 5, Day 7, Cyber Warfare and Disinformation. As the kinetic war rages on, a different kind of battle, silent but equally devastating, unfolds in the digital realm. Cyber warfare, a phantom war fought in the shadows, escalates rapidly, targeting the very fabric of both nations. Banks, power grids, communication networks, all become fair game in this virtual battlefield. Iranian hackers, believed to be backed by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, unleash a series of sophisticated cyber attacks on Saudi Arabian infrastructure. The Saudi Stock Exchange is crippled, its trading floor plunged into chaos. Power outages sweep across major Saudi cities, plunging homes and businesses into darkness. Saudi Arabia, though lagging behind in offensive cyber capabilities, retaliates with cyber attacks of its own, targeting Iranian government websites and propaganda outlets. The cyber war spills over into the realm of disinformation, with both sides flooding social media with fake news and propaganda, further inflaming tensions and deepening the chasm of mistrust. The cyber war, unlike its conventional counterpart, leaves no visible scars, no smoldering ruins, but its impact is no less devastating. It sows seeds of doubt, undermines trust in institutions, and creates an atmosphere of fear and paranoia, leaving populations vulnerable to manipulation and further escalating the conflict. Section 6, Day 30, a bloody stalemate. A month into the conflict, the initial fury of the war begins to wane, replaced by a grim and bloody stalemate. Neither side has been able to deliver a decisive blow. The Saudi military, bogged down in urban warfare in Yemen, struggles to open a second front against a dug-in and determined Iranian defense. Iran, though suffering heavy losses from relentless Saudi airstrikes, shows no signs of backing down. Its ballistic missile arsenal, though depleted, still poses a credible threat to Saudi cities and infrastructure. The conflict has devolved into a war of attrition, a grinding, brutal affair with no end in sight. The human cost of the conflict is catastrophic. Tens of thousands of soldiers lie dead on both sides, their sacrifice a testament to the futility of war. The civilian toll is even more staggering. Hundreds of thousands displaced from their homes, struggling to survive in overcrowded refugee camps, haunted by the trauma of war. The world, initially transfixed by the drama of the conflict, seems to have moved on, desensitized to the daily reports of death and destruction. The war, once a headline-grabbing event, has become a footnote, a tragic reminder of the human capacity for violence and self-destruction. Section 7, Day 100, A world on the brink, 100 days of war, 100 days of death, destruction and despair. The once bright hopes for a swift resolution have long since faded, replaced by a chilling realization. This conflict, far from burning itself out, threatens to engulf the entire region and perhaps the world in a conflagration of unimaginable proportions. The United States, after weeks of agonizing debate, deploys a limited contingent of troops to Saudi Arabia, ostensibly to protect strategic assets and deter further Iranian aggression. The move, however well-intentioned, risks drawing America deeper into the quagmire, escalating the conflict from a regional war to a proxy confrontation between superpowers. Russia, seizing the opportunity to advance its own geopolitical agenda, increases its military support for Iran, deploying advanced anti-aircraft systems and providing logistical assistance. The specter of a direct confrontation between American and Russian forces, once unthinkable, now looms large over the battlefields of the Middle East. The world holds its breath, teetering on the precipice of a wider war. Diplomatic efforts to broker a ceasefire have stalled, bogged down by mistrust and entrenched positions. The doomsday clock, a symbolic measure of humanity's proximity to global catastrophe, ticks ever closer to midnight. The world reacts with a mixture of horror and indignation as news of the Saudi-Iran war spreads like wildfire across the globe. International condemnation is swift and unanimous, with the United Nations Security Council convening an emergency session to address the crisis. World leaders, their carefully crafted speeches rendered meaningless in the face of such naked aggression, scramble to contain the fallout. Calls for an immediate ceasefire, for restraint and de-escalation echo through the halls of power, but fall on deaf ears. Public opinion, inflamed by graphic images of the conflict and fueled by a 24/7 news cycle, swings decisively against both warring nations. Protests erupt in cities across the globe, demanding an end to the violence and a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The initial shock gives way to a sobering realization. This is not a localized conflict, a regional squabble to be contained within the Middle East. The Saudi-Iran war, with its potential to disrupt global energy markets, destabilize the entire region and drawing global powers, represents a threat to the very foundations of the international order. The global economy, already teetering on the brink of recession, plunges into turmoil as the Saudi-Iran war chokes the lifeblood of the world's energy supply. Oil prices, spiking to unprecedented heights, send shockwaves through every sector, from transportation to manufacturing. The interconnectedness of the global economy amplifies the impact, with supply chains disrupted, businesses shuttered, and millions thrown out of work. The cost of living soars, hitting the poorest and most vulnerable the hardest. Central banks, caught off guard by the speed and ferocity of the economic downturn, struggle to stabilize markets. Emergency interest rate cuts and stimulus packages, once considered radical measures, prove woefully inadequate in the face of such an unprecedented crisis. The world watches in dismay as the economic engine that has driven global prosperity for decades sputters and stalls. The dream of a globalized world, interconnected and interdependent, is shattered by the harsh realities of war and conflict. Section 3. The refugee crisis. As bombs rain down and cities crumble, a humanitarian catastrophe of unimaginable proportions unfolds. Millions of innocent civilians caught in the crossfire flee their homes, seeking safety from the relentless violence. They are the forgotten victims of war, their lives shattered, their futures uncertain. The exodus from the war-torn region overwhelms neighboring countries, their resources already stretched thin by existing conflicts and economic hardship. Makeshift refugee camps, overflowing with the displaced and desperate, become breeding grounds for disease and despair. Aid organizations, struggling to cope with the sheer scale of the crisis, issue desperate pleas for assistance. Food, water, medicine, the most basic necessities of life, are in critically short supply. The international community, its attention divided by competing crises and its resources depleted, struggles to mount an effective response. The refugee crisis, a stark reminder of the human cost of war, poses a moral challenge to the conscience of the world. It is a test of our humanity, of our willingness to reach out to those in need, to offer refuge and solace to those who have lost everything. Section 4, a world divided. The Saudi-Iran war, far from being a localized conflict, acts as a seismic event, reshaping the geopolitical landscape and exacerbating existing divisions. The world, once characterized by a fragile balance of power, finds itself increasingly polarized, divided along ideological, religious, and strategic fault lines. Global powers, sensing an opportunity to advance their own interests, are drawn into the vortex, providing military aid, logistical support, and diplomatic cover to their respective allies. The spectre of a proxy war, fought on the battlefields of the Middle East but with global implications, looms large. New alliances are forged, often out of necessity rather than shared values, as nations prioritize their own security and seek to navigate the treacherous currents of this new world disorder. Old wounds are reopened and historical grievances resurface, poisoning relations and undermining any hope for a swift resolution to the conflict. The rules-based international order, already under strain from rising nationalism and great power competition, is further eroded by the conflict. The principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the peaceful resolution of disputes are cast aside, replaced by a brutal calculus of power and self-interest. Section 1, Scars of War. The hypothetical war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, a harrowing journey through the fog of war, leaves us contemplating a chilling reality. The scars of such a conflict would run deep, leaving an indelible mark on the soul of the Middle East. The region, once a cradle of civilization, would lie in ruins, its cities reduced to rubble, its oil fields ablaze, its people scattered by the winds of war. Section 2, a warning from the brink. Emerging from this hypothetical abyss, the stench of war clings to our senses, reminding us of the fragility of peace and the consequences of unchecked aggression. The hypothetical war between Saudi Arabia and Iran serves as a stark warning, a call to action for those who seek a world free from war. It requires a commitment to diplomacy and dialogue, recognizing our shared humanity. The international community must prevent such catastrophic scenarios. Let us learn from past mistakes and strive for peace.